One of the hardest things about making mom friends is getting over the hump of initiating the conversation. We can get totally in our heads and be so afraid to say the wrong thing that we end up not saying anything at all. I've been there many times, and I want to help you out with this. So that's why I've put together a simple conversation starter list for you. If you're anything like me and second guess everything you want to say, then download this conversation starter list so you can always have a few phrases in your back pocket. You'll be amazed at how much it helps to have a few key phrases when you meet someone for the first time. Click the link in the show notes to get your copy. Welcome to Self-Care from the Inside Out for Moms. I'm your host, Carrie McFarland, a certified life coach and founder of Moms Love Coaching. I help moms put themselves first to stop burnout. If you're a mom who is exhausted from carrying the load of getting it all done, then you are officially invited to join the conversation every week. It's the perfect time to take a break, grab your coffee, and focus on the most important person in your life, you. Welcome, everybody, to Self-Care for Moms, self-care for stressed out, overwhelmed, and burned out moms. We are here for another week. How is everybody doing this week? How was your week last week? What did you do? What did you do, Angie?
Well, last week was learning to trust myself to get all of the things on my task list done because I took 2 days off the previous week and went on a lovely retreat and came back and wasn't sure if I was sick or not, like if I'd picked up a cold. So I stayed home Monday morning. I have found myself saying, I just want to be sick because things were happening at work. And it's like, okay, Angie, you could totally go down there's too much happening. I can't handle this, blah, 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 which just feels crappy, right?
Yeah,
So I
it
decided
does.
that I wasn't going to indulge in that and that I was just going to trust that I would get it all done.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed me to sleep better and to use my time better at work. And it's that kind of week. And then I have another full week coming up too. So I'm
Yep.
really looking forward to September 28th.
That's very specific. Is that a
Yes,
Friday? Is that the
yes, that's
Friday? Yeah,
Saturday.
okay.
That's Saturday.
Oh, it's Saturday. Okay.
And I made a date with my 3-year-old grandson for him to
Oh,
come.
oh,
So I'm
okay.
like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanna be totally present and prepared for when he comes because he's, I guess, keep on my toes. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yep.
that's what I'm doing to get through that. I don't wanna just get through the week. I wanna show up and in a way that serves me and that at the end of the day, I can say I showed up and I did my best, and that's the best I can do.
Yep. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
What about you?
Thank you. I didn't really do much this week except for work. I'm trying to think of what I did, and yeah, I was pretty boring this week. I really didn't do a lot. We were going to go apple picking yesterday. It's Sunday when we're recording this, and so yesterday the plan was to go apple picking, but it was raining all day, and so we didn't go. But I will say that we ended up doing some errands and we drove by the apple picking place, and even though it was pouring, and it was pouring, there were still people there, which I thought
Wow.
was amazing. There was
We got
it
no rain yesterday, and we need
oh.
rain bad. So,
Well, maybe it's on the way. I don't know, but it rained here all day. I mean, most of it was just regular rain, but
mhm.
there were parts that were pouring. And when we happened to be driving by the apple orchard, it was pouring and there were still cars there. I mean, and it wasn't just one or two cars. It wasn't full, but
Yeah.
it was probably like 20, 25 cars.
No,
I
they
was
probably
like,
figure if they don't go when they can, they aren't gonna have fresh apples, and there's nothing like a fresh apple,
yeah,
right?
no, I
Picked
know.
right off
So
the tree.
yeah, I do love that. And yeah, we usually eat as we go too. You're not supposed to, but
Yeah.
we
I
do.
remember as a little kid, my parents trying to rip the apple orchard off. Like, they'd go with friends, and they'd have extra bags in the trunk and stuff, and oh my gosh. I'm like,
There's only well, I used to do a lot more baking too, when the kids were younger, and so having that many apples wasn't a big deal because I could get through them, but Now we get like the smallest bag and I still have trouble getting through it. So I'll
Right,
probably make
right.
some applesauce and stuff like that. But I don't do like a lot of baking. The kids don't really, I don't know, like baking isn't their thing anymore. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really done much, which sort of goes into our topic this week, which is making mom friends. And the reason that I say that is because most of the stuff that I do is either with my husband or with my kids, because there's not really a lot of people around. And even though Angie and I are friends, we don't really live very close to each other. So we don't really get together in person super often, maybe a few
We
times a year.
polo a lot, though.
We polo a lot, but we don't get in, we're not together. We don't plan things to go do very often. We do sometimes, but not very
But it's
often.
like what, 3 times a year, 2 twice a year,
Yeah, 2,
you
3
know,
times a
maybe
year. Yeah,
4 times a year,
yeah, yeah.
um, since we've been doing the podcast. Are we a year into the podcast now yet?
Almost.
No.
This episode will be episode 37.
We were recording far sooner than we went public with it, so that's why I
Yes.
keep Carrie's the one that is the, like, the keeper of the podcast and does all the things. So, I just show up to have fun with the conversation.
Yeah, but we're getting to
Yeah.
the 52nd episode. Not It's not that far away.
We
So,
so appreciate the folks that are listening.
yes, we
So,
do. We do. Keep listening, tell your friends,
comment,
and like, subscribe, comment, do all the things.
do all the
Yes,
things, please. We'd love to
but
have a
even if you
conversation with you.
don't, we still love you and we thank you for
That's
listening.
true.
So,
Absolutely.
um,
So, friends.
but yeah, making mom friends. So I don't know about you, Angie, but when my kids were little, it was easier to have at least kind of a surface connection with other moms because when my kids were little, I was a stay-at-home mom, so I would take them places like to the play group, and we had like a center in town where they could play and take them to the park and stuff. And so I would meet people and we would like chat as we're there, right? And sometimes I would see people again, right? But it was rare that that turned into an actual friendship where you would intentionally try to get together either with or without the kids and do that. And so in that way, and especially being a stay-at-home mom, it was uh, you felt, or at least I felt, a little isolated from that. It was sort of like kind of how you feel in school. It's like, well, everybody's getting together and doing these things and I'm just sitting here by myself with the kids and I'm not doing any, I'm not going out and having these adventures with people. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know what other people were doing, but in my head, that's what you think,
Well,
right?
that's the
So,
thing. Even if you don't know whatever other people are doing, you make up a story about what you think they're doing
right,
because you're not doing it and you feel
right.
bad about not doing it. So
Yeah.
you assume everybody else
Yeah,
has
a
different
little
experience. And I
FOMO.
bet there were a lot of moms having the same thoughts and not going out and doing things with girlfriends. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about female friends, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Or I guess it could be other caretakers, so I don't wanna be so gender specific, but yeah, having
Yeah.
people that are staying home with their kids and finding other people that are staying home with the kids that you can, share the ups and downs of that experience because that is definitely a different experience than if you're working out of the home when your kids are little.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kinda hits the nail on the head. It's like, somebody that gets you, right? Somebody that's going through those things and you can just be like, "Oh, this happened again." They understand and they say,
Right.
"Oh, I know," right?
Mhm.
And only another mom in sort of the same situation that you're in is really gonna get that. But so as we do, just to kind of get a point of reference, we looking it up on the Googles. This is what we found. So a mom friend is another mom who gets what you're going through, shares the ups and downs, and offers support and understanding along the way. And I think it can be true of any friendship, but I think when you're both moms kind of going through the same thing, it means a little bit more because you really kind of get each other. You kind of get what's going on. But like I said, I think finding that if you don't have any mom friends is hard. I mean, first of all, it's hard to make friends when you're an adult anyway. It's just harder
Right.
because it just is. Everybody's in their head, and it's not like the older you get, it's like the harder it is to do that because it's when you're little kids, you just don't care. So you just sort of, you want to play? Okay, great, right? Can you imagine? We should
I
do
know.
that as
Would
adults.
you be
Just
my
go up to
friend?
you. Do you want to play?
Right, instead we say, "Do you wanna go out for a cup of coffee?" That is our equivalent to "You wanna
Yeah.
play?" Yeah, I think there is something to that for sure. Another thing is that we make assumptions about what other people's lives are like, and they're not always grounded in any sort of reality, so we can make excuses while we're not being intentional about reaching out and asking somebody to, "Hey, would you like to go for a walk?" That's our
Mm.
play.
Yeah, yeah. You wanna go for a walk?
So,
Yeah. That's what me and my friends when we were little, that's what we do. We call each other on the phone and be like, "Play with ya." "Okay." And then we'd all run to the spot
uh-huh,
where we
yep.
play, right? So we could do that with the people that we meet. "Go for a walk with ya." We'd all go running to the trail.
Yep,
Um
me too.
But so I think so like what you said is it makes sense. You said that people sort of make up stories in their head about what's going on with the other person, and so you sort of
Yeah,
justify why you're not reaching out to them. And
yeah,
I think that we all do that, like, oh well, she won't want to hang out with me because I don't know, like I'm dressed in sweats and a ratty t-shirt and she's all dressed up. So clearly that's not my
right, that
person,
is
right?
it. Yep,
Um, not knowing like, oh well, maybe she's going to work and you're not. And so this is what she would actually like to wear. And you know what I mean? So you sort of make stuff up. But there's also other things that get in the way because having kids is kind of, especially if you have more than one, it's a
yeah,
logistical nightmare,
yeah.
right? With nap times and feeding times and I
I
I
mean, it just
I
depends too if you have a child that's more sensitive and really needs that routine and structure and doesn't
yeah,
nap anyplace else but their own bed, you know?
right.
I remember this because, of course, they're the ones that were babies more recently than my son. It was different having the one versus having the two in
Yeah.
terms of just having the energy to go out and do things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I remember that when my oldest was little, because my kids are 4.5 years apart, and so I did have a good stretch with just her. It was definitely easier because I don't have to coordinate another thing, right? And then when
right.
I had my second, now, my oldest one doesn't really nap, and now I have a newborn that, is well, at first she wasn't sleeping at all, and then she was finally on a nap schedule. Um, And so trying to coordinate that with another mom of like I mean, that's when I gave up playgroup. I didn't completely stop, but I didn't go to the center where we played.
Mhm.
I didn't go there as much because it's only open certain times of the day and it would always fall into nap time. And now my oldest is in preschool, so there's that. And so there's all these time constraints. And not to mention all the things that you need to do,
Right.
when you're a stay-at-home mom in terms of like the housework and grocery shopping and stuff. Because when you're a stay-at-home mom, unless you have somebody that does that for you, that's what you do. So you have to fit all these things in, and now you're trying to fit in a friendship separate from being a mom. I mean, even though you're mom friends, trying to do something like outside of that is difficult. It's not impossible. It's not
Not
impossible. It
impossible.
is it is part of the self-care process to try to fit something like that in. But the reality is you're not going to be able to go out every night or every weekend or something like that. And so
Right.
trying to fit it in with all those time constraints can be a factor in how it affects a friendship or even affects a friendship on how it's going to start, right? Or whether or not it can start, because
Right.
I can't tell you how many times in preschool moms would try to get together, like a group of us would try to get together, and then it would just fizzle out because, well, I can't do it on this day because of this, and I can't do it on this day because of this, and I can't
Mhm.
do it at this time, and I can't do it at this. And before you know it, you're like 3 months in, and everybody's like, never mind.
Right.
Forget it.
Right.
It's like it's September and we can't get together until December. So it just kind of fizzles away. But again, it's not impossible. Some of the other things too, and again, this is just even in general, but it doesn't go away just because you're a mom. That social anxiety that you feel trying to step out of your comfort zone and make small talk with somebody and then trying to transition that small talk into something more. Now, that comes easily for some people over others. And then there's all sorts of people in between. I myself am more of a it takes me a while. I can't just like jump into, oh, our kids are in the same class. Let's go get a cup of coffee.
Mhm.
It doesn't like I have too much going on in my head to make that leap. So for me, some of the mom friends that I made were from playgroup that I would go to over and over and over and over and over again. And so there was a process of seeing them and talking with them a little bit every time, and then you'd kind of make that transition. But even then it was difficult because again, the logistics, some of the people that I was getting friendly with, they had 5 kids, from newborn to teenager, and her schedule was out of control. It was
Yeah,
um so just trying to fit it in, uh, deal with all the stuff that's going on in your head, and then trying to reach out to people to make that connection. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to navigate. And what have we learned from all the different teachings that we've been exposed to is our brain wants to do whatever is easiest. So the easiest thing is to stay in your little bubble and not try to add people in and not try to, change it up. It's just easier to stay the way you are, even if you're not 100% happy with the way that is.
right.
So,
I keep thinking too about when you're more introverted and you need alone time in order to recharge, it would feel, even though you know that having that support of a close friendship would help you with your recharging, because in essence that might be energizing to meet with a friend, but you know that if I have the choice between spending an hour in a bookstore by myself versus going to go meet a friend to have a conversation over coffee, I'm thinking, oh, the bookstore sounds so much better. Just in terms of, I don't have to talk to anybody. I can just relax, and there's no expectations, and I can do what I want.
yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
knowing yourself and knowing what you need in terms of interaction, social interaction.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think what you just said is important though. You just want to be by yourself so you can do what you want. I know I felt that way. Is you're doing things for people all day long, right? And so when you get time to yourself, that is one of the thoughts that you have. It's like I just want to do what I want to do. And
mhm,
so even though you may be feeling lonely or isolated, or you really want to have somebody to connect with about what you're going through, you also want that time to yourself. And so now it becomes a choice almost. It's like, because you don't have a lot of time, so do I use that time to expend energy with another person, or do I use it to recharge myself? And
right,
so maybe that is the difference between introverts and extroverts, because an extrovert would probably choose being with somebody else all day long.
right, right,
um,
exactly.
and the introvert would tend to choose, if they had to make a choice, to kind of reset and be by yourself for a little while. So all these things kind of get in the way, but the underlying thing through it all is I want to make a connection with somebody.
Yeah,
You still want that connection.
we are social
So
beings. I mean, we
yes,
do have a social need. So
right, right.
it
And you want to be
can't be your little ones.
yeah. Yeah, no. You
So
want to be part of that tribe. You want to know that somebody gets you. You want to feel supported, and you want to not have to, well, I mean, if you're a single mom, you want somebody that you can rely on. If you are married or with a partner, you don't want to always have to rely on your partner for your social interaction, because quite frankly, a lot of the times, even though you love them, they're not always interested in the things that you want to do. And as you go through a relationship and it gets further and further and further away from when you first met and when you first got married, that gap gets bigger and bigger of like what you want to do and what they want to do, because people grow and evolve and you have different interests than maybe you did, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
For example, my husband's not going to want to go to a life coaching mastermind.
Probably not.
It's not going to be his thing. Conversely, I don't want to go to a comic book convention, right?
Right.
Not my thing. I don't wanna go there, right? And
Mhm.
he is, a comic book artist as well as a toy collector, right? I would not wanna go with him to that all day,
Right.
just like he
Right.
wouldn't wanna go to my thing all day, you know? So, you have to find people that like the things that you like, so you don't have to rely on your partner for that, because then that's just gonna create resentment. Like, "Why don't you ever wanna do stuff with me?" is what will come up eventually if
Right.
you don't, right? Well, how come you never want to spend time with me? How come you never want to do the things that I like to do? How come, right? And it's
Yeah.
because I don't like them, and that's okay.
Well, there you have it. I mean, yeah, my husband is into turkey hunting, and there is a National Wild Turkey Federation. Did you know that? There is a national
I
organization.
knew that because of you, but I don't know
Yeah.
if our listeners know
So,
that.
so he does this thing, he competes, he does competitive turkey calling, and it's very much a social thing for him as well. I mean, the guy has got, like, I don't know what his last count on Facebook, like, he's Facebook famous, he's like 2,500, 4 I don't know, it might be even 4,000, I don't know. Anyway, followers, and, you put him in a room with turkey hunters, and oh my gosh, I won't ever see him. So I'm like, why do you want me to go to that banquet? Just so you don't feel guilty because I'm home. I'm like, and I'm happier being home and knowing that you're enjoying yourself. And I think he actually enjoys himself when he doesn't have to worry about me sitting
Right.
there and not finding somebody to talk to. Occasionally, there will be somebody there that doesn't want to be social with a lot of people who will
Mhm.
sit and we can chat. But a lot of times it's just like, I'm sorry, dude, I don't really
Yeah,
care.
I
So
I
it's
don't
it
wanna do
it
it. Yeah.
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 So
So I
that's a thing
feel
for
like
sure.
it takes the pressure off of the relationship to fulfill all those needs that you have in terms of social connection, because
Right.
it's a different type of connection that you have with your partner, and you're not gonna like all the same things. It's impossible. Like,
And
he they
exactly.
can't be everything. Like, you can't be everything to them and they can't be everything to you. It just it that would create a complete disaster,
Right.
because then you're really isolating yourself in terms of like, if they don't like that, then I can't do it, kind of a thing. And that's we don't want that for anybody.
Right. Exactly.
But having said that, like we're saying, it is difficult to make that leap from just seeing moms in the playground or a playgroup or something and transitioning that to friends. But it's not impossible. And I know things get in the way, like life stages. You were saying that your kids were little, or your
Right.
girls were little when your friends had teenagers, right?
Right.
So that is a factor. I mean, that is definitely something that would not necessarily prevent it, but get in the way for sure, because you have different responsibilities as your kids get older. And so, taking them here, there, and everywhere. One of the things too that I always struggled with when it came to anything, not just making friends, or making mom friends, but just anything, even adding in a hobby. Or so I used to do Stampin' Up. I think I talked about that in one of the other
Mhm.
podcasts. But so I used to do Stampin' Up, and I would arrange it, and that was a once a month thing that me and somebody else would go to a Stampin' Up thing that one of the demonstrators had at her house, and that was once a month, and I think it was for an hour, so I was probably gone for like an hour and a half, factoring in the
Yep.
drive time, right? So once a month for an hour and a half, I would do that. But I would feel so guilty
Oh
about
god,
leaving my
yes,
family to go do something like that,
yeah,
right? So, balancing your need to go out and do something for yourself with that inevitable mom guilt that comes up that
mhm,
tricks you into thinking that you can't ever do anything for yourself ever again
right,
because now your purpose is to take care of your family and be there for them a 100% of the time, 24/7, whether
absolutely.
they need you or not, you just need to be there, right?
Oh,
I mean,
such a
so
lie, such a lie.
it's such a lie. If your brain for anybody listening to this, if your brain is telling you that, it's a lie. It is a lie. You don't have to do that. Take it from
Right,
us. You don't have to do that. But just balancing that, having an outside interest or outside life, if you will, from your family life is not only a balancing act in terms of the way that you're thinking about it, but it's also a balancing act in terms of, okay, now more people are involved because if you're going off with somebody else, that means that somebody is going to have to be there with your kids. And maybe it's your partner or maybe it's somebody else, but now you're going to have to coordinate that and make sure that that's in place before you do it. And having a give and take because if your partner's doing things too, and then you have to be there. And again, it's not impossible, but it is a balancing act. And it is one of those things that make it difficult. And when something is difficult, then you tend to just never
not wanna
mind.
do it.
Never mind. It's not even worth it. You know what I
Right,
mean? So, um,
again, totally understandable,
yeah,
but
totally understandable. I mean, well, that's what our brains do is they
right,
just say, "Forget it. It's too hard. It's too much effort. I'm thinking too much. I'm thinking too much about it. So just
right,
stop. Just no."
yeah,
So that's what happens in my brain for sure. Um,
for sure.
for sure. But yeah, so and this isn't all doom and gloom. I don't want people to think that y- it's impossible, so just don't even worry about it. Never mind, right? That's not what
Yeah,
we're saying. But I do think it's important to kind of call those things out because they're real. And those are the kinds of things that even though you want that friendship or you want, I mean, last podcast was about getting out of a rut. And this is sort of on the same lines of that in terms of adding something into your life that wasn't there before
mhm,
and all the different things that you need to do to be able to do that. And it's not impossible, but it has a lot to do with the way that you're thinking about it. And if you are telling yourself that it's impossible, I can't do this, they don't want to talk to me, why would they want to be my friend? Their kids aren't into the same things that my kids are into. She looked at me weird, so she clearly doesn't like me. Like all that stuff. And I know that is all sort of middle school stuff, but let's be real, that stuff doesn't go away, right?
it doesn't go away, so I have the perfect example of that. So my girls are we're 2 school years apart, and so the way that our rec program worked for, like, soccer and, basketball, there was, there were was they went by every 2 years. My older daughter's class, her class was very the parents were very social and very open and accepting and, um, they were really fun. My other younger daughter's class was very cliquey, the parents. Well, part of
Mm,
it was because they'd all gone to high school together. There was there were
yeah.
several that had all they were all roughly the same age. Now, I was older so most of those moms in that group were 10 years younger than me. So there was already an age difference. But they knew each other. I liked it when her class was with this other set of parents that were less clicky because then I'd have people to talk to when I went to events and stuff.
Mhm.
They're perfectly nice, but you walk up and they're all sitting in a circle on their little chairs, and you're like, okay, where do I fit in there? So you'd
Right.
stand back, or I'd make my husband come to the game with me, so I had somebody to talk to. But it
Yeah.
was that sort of thing, right? So
Yeah.
and what
That's real. I mean, that
right, we
that
lived
is real. I'm glad you brought up the age thing because I had the same experience. I had my youngest when I was 38, 39. Now I forget, but I was 38 or 39, I think, when I
mhm,
had my youngest, or maybe I was 37. But anyway, I was older. I have to go back and do math, like,
She's
it's like, how
15.
old was I?
Uh,
But, yeah, so I experienced that too, is I was definitely older than most of the not everybody, but most of the moms, I was definitely at least 10 years older.
mhm.
Um, and so that makes a difference. I mean,
It does.
that's like a whole generation almost. So, again, all these things are a factor, and I think that being aware that these things like there's a reason that you keep kind of stopping yourself
Mhm.
from making that transition from just hey how are you to hey let's get together and start kind of building that there's reasons behind it. It's
Right,
not just because you're not good enough or because they don't like you or because you just can't get it together, right? It's none of those things.
right, right,
It's just it's all these natural, normal things that we think and feel when we're put in a situation like that, that if you're not aware of it, will prevent you from going any further and maybe creating
right,
deeper connections. So if
right,
you're aware of it, it's easier to say, "Oh, I see what I'm doing right now.
right.
I see that. I
It
see that.
all
I'm
starts
on
with
T-brain."
awareness.
Yeah. And so changing the way that you approach things and being more curious and open minded when you go into something. So, for example, the circle that you just talked about, right? Like you go in there and they're already in their own circle and talking and talking and talking, right? And so there's two
Mhm.
ways to approach that. Either you tell yourself, well, I guess I'm not welcomed there. They're
Mhm.
already in a closed off circle. So never
Yep,
mind, I'll just go over here, right? Another way to approach it is to say, "Oh, I can be part of that group too. I'm just going to pull up a chair and they'll move, you
right.
know? They'll let me in. Of course they'll let me in. I'm a mom too. I I
Yeah,
have I have things to contribute and say, and, they seem like a friendly group. I see them laughing over there and talking and
yeah,
having fun. I could be part of that." It would change what you did, right? It would
right.
change how you feel about it. It would change what your approach would be, right? So you're feeling instead of feeling defeated or rejected or just not confident, you would be curious, like, oh, what are they talking about? I want to be part of that and just walk right on up. So we could sit here and talk about, well, join a club or be part of the parenting group or get a hobby or talk
Right.
to moms at the park, right? We
Yeah,
could talk
all
about
the
that stuff
things.
all day long. But if you're not thinking that they will be receptive to you, or you're thinking that you could never be part of that, or they're never going to be friends with me, or never mind, that's too much work. If those are the things
Right.
that you're thinking, it doesn't matter what you choose to do, none of it's going to work.
Exactly. Because
So,
self-fulfilling
yeah.
prophecy.
Right, exactly. So definitely, if it's available to you, put yourself in situations where you can meet other moms for sure, but also have that mindset behind it that you are a person who is able to make friends and you are a person who people want to talk with and you are a person who can engage and connect with people. Those
Right.
are the things that you need to be thinking about when you're going into these things. Otherwise, you're going to go in and you're going to do the painting class and have some wine for sure. And
Yeah,
you'll come back with a nice painting, but you're not going to have anything else,
right.
you know? And I say that half jokingly, but it's true. I think that like anything else, it takes practice. So it's not as if you're going to listen to this podcast and be like, oh, I know exactly what I need to do. And then go out and gather all these mom friends and have this big community. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So it is going to take some practice, just like anything else. We talk about practice
Absolutely.
prioritizing yourself. If you want to make mom friends or make connections with people who you think will understand what you're going through and start to build that community, you're going to have to practice thinking about it differently. And
Yeah.
that's going to take a little time, but it's just about being aware of what you're thinking now and what you want to think, and bridging that gap with something that is more palatable for the moment.
Mhm.
So if you're thinking they're never going to want to be my friend, maybe you're not going to be able to make the leap to, oh, everybody wants to be my friend.
Right.
But you could make the leap to, well, I could just talk with this person and see what happens. Right?
Mhm.
Right? Or I could say, there's no real reason that they wouldn't wanna be my friend. Something small like that, that you can use to bridge the gap, and so that will just give you enough confidence to start putting yourself out there just a little bit to start building those bridges so you can start building those communities and make connections with people,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's really all it is. It's you just have to get out of your head about it, which, believe me, I know all about.
Ah,
Being in your
yeah,
head about that kind of stuff.
yes.
Um another easier maybe fix, this might help you bridge the gap a little bit, is instead of, in person, doing it through Facebook groups or some sort of group, an online group, just to start practicing putting yourself out there. Now, I wouldn't recommend that be the only thing, but it could be a good start, if you're really not confident about going out in person and doing this, doing that online could be a really good first step with the intention of up leveling at some point and then doing it in real life.
Mhm.
IRL, as the kids say.
Oh, aren't you just like up on all the current vocabulary?
So,
Right.
so we will end it there, and everybody have a great week. Start making those connections. Just stick your toe in the water just a little bit.
Just a little
Just
bit.
just a little bit. Don't stress yourself out, but just start the process of reaching out to people and building those communities and just getting out of your head a little bit more.
'Cause
So,
chances are they're feeling the same way.
that's
A
true.
real good
That
ch
could be another
possibility
thought you have. If
they're
I'm
thinking the
thinking
same thing.
this way, they're probably thinking the same thing, so I'm gonna take the first step. That could be another bridge thought.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. Alright, have a good one,
all right.
everybody.
Until next week, we will see you.
See you.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. This makes it easier for everyone to find us and helps us spread our message about self care from the inside out. Have a wonderful week, and remember, making yourself the priority is the highest form of self care.